I welcome you all to our today's CB meeting. Today we have a very important topic with us, that is professional ethics. And it is my proud privilege to inform that the faculty for today is none other than our past CCM and past WRT chairman, CA Shriniwas Joshi sir. I request you all to welcome him with a round of applause. Before we start the meeting, I would request you all to please stand at attention for the Institute motto song and the national anthem. Please stand at attention. Please keep standing for the national anthem.
भारत माता की
Before we start today's meeting, I have a few announcements to make. First and foremost, WRC is having its regional conference on the 15th and 16th of December at the NESCO grounds. All are requested to attend the same. We are also offering an incentive for the JP Nagar members who registered for the conference by way of reimbursement of rupees 500 on the registration fees bill. Nextly, I also want to, yeah, today is the last day for the early bird discount that the WRT is offering. They are offering the registration at 3,000 plus GST till 10th of December. So anybody who's interested and has not registered is requested to please go back and register today. Then apart from that, at JV Nagar Study Circle, we are having 17 CPR program this month. So all of those who have not completed their hours for the calendar year 23 can avail the CPRs by attending the meetings. Also, please inform your friends and colleagues who want to attend. Another information that I want to let you all know is that we had our Nepal tour of the JV Nagar members last month, which was a grand success. Everybody enjoyed a lot and it was a great tour. Thank you. Coming back to today's topic, I think ethics is like the backbone of our profession. And to elaborate on same, we have with us our learned faculty. For the formal introduction of our today's speaker, I would like to invite CA Ankush Gupta ji, who's a core group. Apart from the CP, apart from the ethics, everybody is aware that 2 CPRs are compulsory for auditing standards. So we are having a program on 22nd of December. which is a joint program with WIRC. And it is a paid program, but for JB Nagar members, we have waived the registration fees. There'll be a registration form that will be circulating. So the anybody who's interested can come and attend that program also. So I would like to now invite Ankush ji for the formal introduction of our today's faculty.
Very good morning to everyone. Our today's learned speaker, Shriniwas Joshi sir, is a qualified chartered accountant and company secretary and is a senior partner in CA firm CVK and Associate. He was chairman of WIRC for the year 2011-12. He has also served Central Council of ICAI for 6 years and was part of various committees of ICAI. He is a regular speaker at WIRC and its branches on various subjects like accounting standard, auditing standard, company law, ethical standards, etc. Friends, with this short introduction, I would request everyone to please welcome him with a huge round of applause. And before handing in the stage, I would request Arora sir, please, if you can present him with a memento, and our convener and everyone, please.
So मैं आपका PPT कनेक्ट कर देती हूँ. सर कौन सा वाला चालू करना है?
चार में से ये
फंडामेंटल्स. हाँ.
every time you have to do like this, second, third, fourth.
हाँ, मुझे Zoom पे शेयर करना पड़ेगा. सर मुझे बता दीजिए.
नहीं तो ये मिनिमाइज करके रखिए ना चारों.
हाँ मैं चारों.
या स्क्रीन पे इस पे रखिए. फेस पे.
डेस्कटॉप पे ये चारों है. चारों डेस्कटॉप पे.
So that anything that we select.
Yes, अभी चारों खुला हुआ है. बट वो शेयर करते रहना है.
अभी ये बंद करो. वो अपना दूसरा कर दे. दूसरा कर दिया. शेयर तो करना.
शेयर स्क्रीन कर देते हैं तो स्क्रीन ही शेयर हो जाएगा. आप बैठ के नहीं सकते.
They will not be able to see me. ये यहाँ पर हो सकता है ना. हाँ लैपटॉप ना. You want this?
हाँ ताकि आपका फोटो आए.
वैसे करे क्योंकि वो फोटो इसके ऊपर.
नहीं रिकॉर्डिंग में.
अच्छा रिकॉर्डिंग में. ये जरा पीछे जाएगा. ये किसका है?
मेरा है. वो वाईफाई के लिए रखा.
वाईफाई के लिए रखा. थोड़ा पीछे हो जाएगा. मैं कहना अरे नहीं गिरेगा. नहीं कर देता. नीचे वायर है. गिरेगा नहीं ना. नहीं गिरेगा.
बाकी तो इधर ही रहना.
हाँ मैं ये फर्स्ट ओपन करें. ये तो यहाँ से ही करना पड़ेगा ना.
Let me just do stop share again and then share again. Yes.
F5 कर. नहीं जा रहा है.
वो वैसा वहाँ वैसे दिखेगा।
एक मिनट ये
अच्छा, इधर कर।
इससे से जाएगा सर क्या है ना जा रहा है नहीं जा रहा है ना ये नहीं हो रहा है यहाँ पर नहीं हो रहा है नहीं हो रहा है वो नहीं हो रहा है वो यहाँ पर देखना होगा डबल खुल गया एक बंद करो ये भी बंद करो ये नहीं चाहिए ये भी नहीं किया अभी ये भी नहीं किया अभी तो डबल खुल गया इसके लिए नहीं चलता तो अभी हाँ, तो ठीक है देखो ये हो रहा है ना ठीक है अच्छा थैंक यू
मेरा फोन नहीं रहेगा, मैंने कनेक्ट नहीं किया है फॉर माइक किस तरह से
आवाज आ रही है हाँ आ रहा है पढ़ना हेलो हेलो या इट्स ओके गुड मॉर्निंग फ्रेंड्स गुड मॉर्निंग it's my pleasure to be in JB Nagar once again. Friends, I got first elected in 2003 election to WRC, and in the first council of Western region of 2004-7, I had Sanjay Maheshwari, who is one of the person who formed this study circle. And from that year, I have been visiting every year to JB Nagar for one lecture or the other, at least one lecture a year. And that is why I get such a big box. Every time they are just increasing the size of the box that they give me some present. बहुत बरस का प्यार है, बहुत बरस का, बहुत decades I will say, not 1 year. So this, this type of, when there is a full house in institute, I was in the WRC for 9 years, Central Council for 6 years. In between also I am in the institute for more than 20 years. Now, I know when there will be a full house for any program. There are only few things. One is if the speaker is exceedingly good. Two is if the topic is of importance, GST, income tax, budget, whatever you say. So then you will have a full house. And third time is when institute makes it compulsory for you to attend. So this is probably I know every one of you have come for either 1, 2 or 3 or all of 3 or any 2 of them. All of 3, all the 3. So if you have really, I hope you really enjoyed this. I know some of the topics that some of the speakers are given over the years are the type of topics that very hardly few people speak. On ethics and on auditing standard, there are very few speakers because there is nobody to listen except myself, when I speak on that. So it's better not to speak on those topics. But December is my month, anytime I can come and make you listen to what I want to say on this. Friends, coming to this particular topic for the day on ethical standards, many of you have heard in the past lectures on ethical standard. Every year you need to listen to at least one lecture on this. Most of the speakers are speaking about the Act, CA Act. CA Act 1949, you are aware, was amended in 2006 and again in 22. Many of them speak on the schedules, that is the first schedule and second schedule of CA Act. And section 22 of this act tells us about the misconduct of the member of the institute. And many of the speakers are speaking about the case studies, that is the disciplinary cases that we have to face if we don't follow the act. Ethical standards are beyond act. And this is the time I think I can make you aware that this is something different and not act. CA Act in any case we have to follow. For example, if all of us are aware that the first schedule part 1 tells us about already tell us about how we should behave. What is it? If we don't behave in that fashion, then there is a misconduct. For example, I should not enter into partnership with a non-member, or I shouldn't advertise my professional attainment, or I shouldn't fail to communicate with an outgoing auditor, or I can't engage in any other profession, or I can't be a allow a non-member or a non-partner to sign on my behalf. And if you go to second schedule of part 1 of the act, you will find that says about disclosure of information without client's consent, that it is not allowed to be done. For example, I cannot fail to disclose a material fact in my financial statements, or I can't fail to report a known material misstatement appearing in financial statement, or I can't fail to obtain sufficient information for expressing my opinion. Now, friends, here what I'm trying to say is this is what you have heard on many times as to we have heard not doing this and many more things. Of course, these schedules are quite long and there are many other things told to us to do. And we fail to do this, there is a disciplinary. Here we are not talking of disciplinary when I'm talking on this subject today. But remember one thing, I want to caution you that if some of you are doing the practice in the listed companies, then NFRA provisions are applicable to you. So when NFRA, I don't know how many of you are doing such a thing, practice in listed companies. And if you are doing that audit of listed companies, you must go to NFRA site and read some of the reports that they have given on the site. The reports are against the company and they are also against the auditors. But one thing to note in that report is that they have also talked of ethical standards. I told you they are beyond our act. And not only they said that what we did not do, what was required to be done as per act, but what was required to be done as per ethical standard, even one sentence given in ethical standard book, even that they have mentioned and said that you have failed to do this. So see that even the government is getting aware of these standards. And the reason is obvious. These are the standards, the international standards. We have adopted them as good practices in India. First in 2009, 2019, we revised all that. Again, as per international law, and there are some developments in between these 10 years. They are about to be revised once again now. So these standards, what we want to inculcate in us as a good practice, as good chartered accountants, as good professionals in the world, this is what we are talking about, beyond CA Act. Let us come to this, and there is something called fundamental principles which every CA has to follow. And listen to me carefully, we have about, we will be speaking up to 10:45. So little less time. Yesterday I spoke 3 hours on the same subject of ethical standards and hardly 5 people left the hall. This is not praising myself, but I am telling you how much then CA feels that he should get involved into this discussion. There are fundamental principles. There are 5 fundamental principles. Principles of integrity, objectivity, professional competence, due care, confidentiality, and professional behavior. You might say that every CA, of course, every professional accountant need to comply with these principles. But in any case, by reading that, you will feel that, yes, I know everything. I know I have to behave in this fashion as a good chartered accountant. It is not enough to know that there is something beyond the caption, and I'll tell you that. Now, this particular fundamental principles of ethics establish 2 things. It establishes first the standard of behavior by us, and it also establishes the approach by a chartered accountant to these standards. Now, we can face a situation where these 5 principles, which I told you, they can be conflicted. Means in a particular situation, I can follow one but may not follow other. Or I can follow 2 and I can't follow other 3. Say in such situations, what the guidance given to us is that we should resolve this conflict. We have no way but to resolve. There is no way we can escape from that. And resolving the conflict, we can take help of either the institute or legal counsel or those charged with governance. That is the management of the of our auditee, or we can take help of even the others in our firm. Now here, not only that, the ethical standard, like all our standard, accounting standard, auditing standard, ethical standard also requires documentation that I did follow all this. Now, if this is the case, I need to follow what I need to document. I need to document first, what was the issue? What was the issue in not following the ethical standard, or where I felt I will fall short? So the substance of the issue. Second is details of the discussion. With whom you discuss, what you discuss. Third is what decision you made finally. And fourth is the rationale for your decision. This is the documentation required by every chartered accountant. If NFRA challenges you, obviously they will ask you all these four things about every decision on ethical standard which they feel they are not followed. You say you have followed, then this documentation is additional documentation to whatever we have learned in accounting, auditing standards, etc. You will feel it is onerous task, I agree, but required. Let us come to 5 standards individually quickly. One is first was integrity, first fundamental principles. This integrity requires us to have 4 things. One is straightforwardness, second is honesty, third is fair dealing, and fourth is truthfulness. Now you will say, yes, I'm always have a fair dealing. I'm always truthful to my work. I'm always honest. But are you straightforward? Are you saying directly what is not right as that is not right? This is where we fail out of the 4 things. Generally, we have all other 3 things, but straightforwardness requires me to tell on the face of my client that I'll qualify this. I am not satisfied with this entry. I am not satisfied with this particular way you are maintaining, you are having presenting your final accounts. And therefore, this is the part of our integrity that a chartered accountant should have. That is what the ethical standards require us. Now, what a professional accountant or a chartered accountant should not knowingly associate with. He should not knowingly associate with any report or a return or a communication or any other information which he believes one contains materially false or misleading information. So if any report or any return contains any material false or misleading information, he should disassociate himself with that. Second is if it contains the statement or information which is negligently provided and obviously therefore wrong, or something is omitted or obscures required information, it would be misleading. In a sense, either it is omitted or obscures means it is given in such a way that it will mislead the reader. So in all these cases, we should disassociate. And how we should disassociate? Either we take the steps to disassociate or we can modify the report. We can, that means we can have a modification report. You are aware, SA 705 talks of modification in report, and we should give either modified report or we should disassociate with that particular information, means with that particular work at all. Coming to the second fundamental principle, objectivity. Friends, objectivity is not to compromise business or professional judgment. Because of what? Because of bias, because of conflict of interest, or because of undue influence of others. Now, friends, bias, you are aware. Bias is, suppose I have some political way of thinking, and if someone else speaks other way around, I have a bias towards my opinion. I feel only my opinion is right. This can happen in my work also. I have read accounting standard, I have read auditing standard. I feel the way I think about that is right. Bias is I am not ready to listen to anything else. No other person telling me about another interpretation of the same thing, and I am not able to weigh it properly whether I was right or the other one was right. So this bias has to be, is not to compromise the bias. Second is conflict of interest, and we'll talk on conflict. The conflict of interest, friends, comes when my personal interests get conflicted with what I need to do. I need to write or give a qualified opinion. I will have to leave the client next year. He says that if you want to give qualified, you can give this year. Unfortunately, I appointed you. So, but now I will give next year. Please don't come to me. This is the conflict. Now, whether I'm ready to leave, have the fee, I'm attached to that money that I get, or I am very honest and say that no, there is a conflict of interest, and I will not do either this work or I'll resolve the conflict. We'll come to resolution later on. And thirdly, of course, undue influence by others. And in the what will be the undue influence? A professional accountant shall not undertake a professional activity if a circumstances or relationship unduly influence his professional judgment. Right? Coming to the next principle is professional competency and due care. These are 2 different things. I'll tell you about first about the professional competency. All of you are aware that we all of us feel, in fact, inside that I'm giving very competent, very great service to my clients. Everybody inside feels that way, whether it is true or not. Sometimes, of course, our mind or inside our inner voice tell us, no, we are not doing really right. We are not really up to the mark that it is required. That is the same thing what the ethical standard is telling us. What it is saying that what we have to say, we have to attain and maintain the professional knowledge. What is the professional knowledge? About the professional standards that are accounting standard, auditing standard, IFRS, Ind AS, whatever you read, and relevant legislations. So we as chartered accountant deal with so many legislations. I always say that chartered accountancy is the only profession in this country which, if you see all other professions, they deal with their own work that they do in a very small area. That way, we need to know hundreds of legislation. If Tata once said that I have such a big empire, at least one of my companies, one of my enterprise must be doing at least one error every day, at least one. There are so many legislations in this act, it's impossible to comply with that. It's the same thing with chartered accountants. We are saying that we need to have professional standards and relevant legislations updation. We should not only attain, that is not only learn when we do CA, we should maintain that. We should see that we update ourselves on that. That is one requirement. And obviously, second requirement is to act diligently. Now, when we say we act diligently, diligent means the responsibility to act accordance with the requirement. There are four requirements. One is requirement of the assignment. Diligence is first what that assignment asked me to understand first, what my knowledge should be, how my knowledge is updated for that assignment. Am I capable of handling that? Do I have enough staff to handle that? Is the requirement of an assignment. I should do it very carefully and I should do it thoroughly. Carefully is I'm looking at it properly, but doing it thoroughly requires a real in-depth knowledge of that work that I'm doing. And also I should do it on a timely basis. That is what the diligence is all about. Friends, if you don't do something timely, it is not as per ethics. We know the timelines when we take the work. Client always tells us that I want a certificate or the accounts by a date. I have a board meeting, or I have a particular return to be filed, or I have a particular thing to be done with the regulator, RBI, IRDA, whatever. And then we don't follow the timeline. We don't do it on timely basis. Is an unprofessional of attitude, and then our professional competence of doing the work, appropriate work in time, is in doubt as per ethical standard, right? So that is what we are saying. Now, maintaining the competence requires the awareness of understanding of relevant technical, professional, and business developments. Friend, business development is something that we feel, all of us read Economic Times, Financial Express, but how regularly we read? And when we read, are we reading the articles in that to understand the issues with various business or various sectors of our economy or world economy? Very few of us do it. Now, if you see the onions, export have been stopped and there is agitation in Nasik, in Maharashtra on that. Do you know why it has been stopped? If you are doing a work of an agriculturist exporter who is doing export of agricultural products, you should know that. This is what about the business developments that the ethical standards are talking about. Not only I should update myself on technical standard, professional standard, but also the business developments of this particular work that I do. So I should develop such capabilities there. Also that I should take the reasonable steps for working in the professional capacity in such a way that my staff is also professionally capable of handling the job. Many of us depend on article trainees, or many of us depend on new chartered accountants, because CAs come and go in CA offices. They will go for better firm or they will go for employment in industry. Now, till they are there, they are actually juniors and we depend heavily on them. The ethical standards require us to see that they are also appropriately trained and supervised. It is not only training, whether they are actually implementing what they have been trained for is also equally important for all of us. The last thing in this is one extremely important thing, if you see the last slide, that there are limitations of audit. You are all aware. When you have a session on auditing standard, you will again learn about the limitations of any work that we do. For example, we are not trained to look at the fraud or to investigate a fraud. This is one of the limitations, but there are many limitations why the fraud can happen, and I am not able to actually detect that in time. That's why frauds happen over years. The PNP fraud happened over 10 years, or some frauds happened. The Satyam fraud was happening for 7 years and auditors were not aware. This is why, because there are limitations, inherent limitations of my service. So the standard says, the ethical standards say that we should make our clients aware that what I will deliver and what I cannot deliver. Whole world feels that once the audit is done, there will be no fraud. Whole world believes. It is not true. All of us know, but have we communicated it to our clients that there are inherent limitations in the work that I do? I don't, and therefore the ethical standard requires us also to make the client aware as to what work I'll be doing, what is my output, what the deliverables are in my case, and what I will not be able to deliver is also equally important. Come to the next one, confidentiality. Friends, confidentiality looks very simple. I know everything I get information from anyone should be kept confidential. It is not only that. Just see what is given here. Principles of confidentiality requires an accountant to respect the confidentiality of information. And what is respecting this confidentiality is given subsequently. First is be alert to the possibility of inadvertent disclosure. Now, inadvertent disclosure is I don't want to disclose. As a chartered accountant, I know whatever I come to know in my professional capacity, I should never disclose. But inadvertently, I disclose to whom? One is on social media. Social media, we keep on posting something, and sometimes we brag. In a sense, we try to say, I did this for this company, I did this loan transaction for this company, I did auditing. The first issue was done by me for so and so client. This is, giving the information which I'm not supposed to do it on this social media. First problem. Second problem is we can give it to the close business associate. When I come back from a client, I talk to my partner and say, मालूम है क्या हो गया उधर, ये problem है उधर. This is, that information was supposed to be with you. You are an audit partner. He is a tax partner. Third partner is an indirect tax partner. And then they are not supposed to know. They need not know this. Telling about the other person's negative points is in our genes. The person, when he is there in front of me, I'll praise. Moment he leaves, I'll try criticizing him or tell others about the negative things about that person. This is inherent in each one of us. So it is likely that to the particular close business associate, either associate or even my partner, I will disclose this information. And the third thing is I can disclose this information to my close family member, my son, my daughter, my wife. When I go home, I inadvertently say, today I attended this and there were so many issues there or problem. So three things you remember. Inadvertent disclosure in social environment, inadvertent disclosure in close business associate, and inadvertent disclosure with immediate close family member need to be avoided if you want to have the ethical principle of confidentiality to be followed. Number one. Number two, I must maintain confidentiality of information within the firm. Now, you will feel it is easy when I get some data. It's not easy. So many people are working. When I am an old timer chartered accountant, we had physical files and we were filing returns in a physical form, and we had thousands of files, physical files in my office. Once it happened that there were two articles with me, their fathers were friends. One person rang up the father of one, rang up the father of other, and let us call them A and B. A asked B how you are doing. B said as usual, you ask any businessman, नहीं अच्छा नहीं चल रहा है, किधर है, आजकल पैसा नहीं है, लोग पेमेंट नहीं करते वगैरह वगैरह. He said you are telling all false. I know your turnover, I know your profit, I know how much you have invested, where you have invested. Then he got rage. He asked him for where you got this information. He said from my son, who is in the same firm. And he is filing your return, so he knows what you are doing in this, and so why you are telling me lie, I am a good friend, etc. That person B came to our office and asked my senior partner. He said, take my file home. I don't want my file in this office because everybody is reading my file. He said it is not possible. My partner said it is not possible. These thousands of files which are in office, I can't push it to my home. Then how office will be? Now you see the problem of keeping the information confidential in the firm, how difficult it is. And I'm not saying about this when everything was manual. Now also my computer is fully accessible by, if all of you who are chartered accountancy practice know, your computer, your server is fully accessible to everybody in your organization, everybody. And that is where this confidential information can easily go out, easily. Coming to the next one, maintain confidentiality to be disclosed to the prospective clients. Now, or employing organization. Now, prospective clients, friend, because why employing organization? Ethical standard, friends, are applicable to persons who are in employment also. Not necessarily they are applicable only to the to us as practicing chartered accountants. So prospective client. So I tell my about the second part, employing organization. I tell my articles when you go for your interview after passing, never tell about the any figure of what work you did. For during articleship, you can say this is what I did. Never give the actual figures and the name of the organization where you did it. Because the interviewer is trying to understand whether you can keep his information confidential when he employs you. By asking those kind of questions, he is trying to get out of you what whether you can do this. So coming to the next one, from the prospective client, we always want more clients and more work, more money with that. What we do with the prospective client, he may be a competitor to my other client, who maybe they are at different levels. Some are at very high level, some are low, but they are still competitors. They are in the same business. I brag, I go there and tell them, I did this for this client, I did this because I want to get this work, and tell him I'm fully experienced in this kind of work. That is what I want to impress on him. And so what I tell him, everything about my another client. Probably will not get the work for the same reason that he thinks that if he gives you the work, you will do the same thing and tell the other client about this person, what you got. So prospective client, maintain the confidentiality of information or to the employing organization. Not to disclose information without the proper and specific authority unless legally required to do so. So if you want to disclose any information, unless there is a legal need, we'll come to that when it can be disclosed. But otherwise, we are not supposed to disclose unless our client tells us to disclose. Internationally, this is followed very, very strictly. I'm giving you some other example, not necessarily from our profession. There were some criminals arrested in US, and US government was not able to break the password of Apple phone of this, and they wanted to know these criminals were connected with whom and with whom they were ringing up all the time. They asked Apple to break that code. Apple said no. Under the agreement of confidentiality, they said this is the severe security issue for US as a country. Apple said still no. Unless court asks us to give this, we will not do it. Under confidentiality agreement with my customers, I will not break that password. See how strictly ethical codes are followed all over the world. They challenge US government and saying that yes, we'll not give, do whatever you like. And they could not get. US government had to put the whole efforts to do that later on and to get that information which they were not getting. Now coming to the next one, about the one is, of course, if you get that permission, you can do it. Now next is that you cannot use this information for personal advantage or for advantage of a third party. So this information can be indirectly used by us. We want to use this information for our personal gains. Sometimes it's very easy. I talk to my broker client and he says that so and so company is like, this is inside information about a company which he gives me. I immediately go and do a trade, either sell or buy. This is straight away using that confidential information which I got. Suppose the broker was in difficulty for doing some trade, and stock exchanges come with a query, and I want to solve that query to help him give a reply. That time I came to know, discussing with him so many things which I use for personal gain immediately. With the other broker, I put the trades. This is what I'm not supposed to do. It is unethical to use this information for personal advantage or for advantage of any third party. So I can't tell even my partner, चलो ये कर दो, मैं बोलता हूँ ना करो, ये होगा, अच्छा है, ये sell करो या buy करो. Just to give you an example. Now, another thing is not to disclose the confidential information even after the relationship has ended. Now, this is serious. No, when the relationship ends, generally it is very sore. No chartered accountant wants to really lose the work. And nobody wants to lose the work. Why chartered accountant? Even a trader, and nobody wants to leave a client or a customer. Now, in that case, when the relationship ends, you are very angry. Generally saying that इसका अभी कुछ ना कुछ खराब करना ही पड़ेगा. ये मुझे छोड़ता है, मैंने इतना इसके लिए काम किया, इतना कम फीस में किया, इतने बरस से इसको सपोर्ट किया, लेकिन कुछ नहीं हुआ. देखो इसने मुझे छोड़ दिया. Something similar, one of the person from this study circle was telling me that he was with him for 20 years, and when he made a public issue, he appointed some very large firm as an auditor, and this person was first pushed as an internal auditor from statutory audit, and after 3 years, even he was checked out from internal audit also. So this is kya hai ye? This is injustice to me. I saw him grow, and I have charged him so much. Anyway, so less. But even after ending the relationship, can you maintain the confidentiality? It is absolutely required. In all rage, in all anger that I have, still I can't give the personal, if the confidential information which I got from the client is ethical standard. Not to disclose ensure that staff also complies with this condition. So not only that I am responsible to do this, I must inculcate this habit in my staff also, that they also do not disclose this information. It's difficult. I already told you it's difficult, but we need to do that. Now coming to the other things about the confidentiality. Now, confidentiality, friends, confidentiality is a good principle. Why? Because it has a free flow of information from your clients to you. When we do audit, remember, only 5% is check and 95% is on trust. What he is saying. Most of the time we don't have any documentation. We will ask question, he will give reply, I accept the reply. So if that is to happen, all information flows to you should be very smooth. He has to be confident about your confidentiality principle, that you will not do something against him, and you will get this information only for the work that you are doing. So this, of course, have a free flow of information to CS. Now, if the disclosure can be done if it is required by law, for example, in the course of proceedings or authority asking you for something, you can always disclose. Disclosure is permitted if it is authorized by the client. If the disclosure is also permitted if there is a professional duty or right to disclose, and that is not prohibited by law. Disclosure can be made to comply with requirement of peer review. In peer review or quality review. Quality review board also has a review. Such cases, obviously the client information will have to be given to one of our colleagues who is also under confidentiality agreement, that he will not disclose it outside. To respond to any inquiry and investigation by a professional or regulatory body, to protect the professional interest of the accountant himself in a legal proceeding, and to comply with technical and professional standard and ethical requirements. Yeah. Now, this is slide 10. Now, in deciding whether to disclose confidential information or not, this is what we said in the inquiry, etc. We need to see. Now, coming to this, there is one more thing that we should know. That this particular deciding whether confidential information should be disclosed, there are some other things, and you'll be surprised about this part of that. That the ethical standard says, okay, you have got permission from the client also to disclose or required by law. You should also consider it will harm the interest of any party, including a third party. So if third party interest will be affected by my act of disclosing information, I shouldn't do that. See how much ethical we need to be, saying that if I disclose in spite of that, somebody else is severely harmed, and I'll not do that. Another thing I should think before disclosing any information which is confidential is whether it is substantiated. Unsubstantiated facts where there is no enough proof in my hand to say, yes, this is right what I'm disclosing, unless I do that. So it should be substantiated. it shouldn't be incomplete. So if it is an incomplete, I know these are not all aspects of information I haven't got, I should disclose because the other part may be more important or more important to take a decision on that. So it shouldn't be incomplete information at all. What is the type of communication and who is appropriate authority to disclose this is also important. Friend, next is professional behavior. The professional behavior is as a principle require us to comply with various relevant laws and regulation in such a way that I don't discredit my own profession. That is number one. So I should behave in such a way that even a third party who is looking at my profession should say, yes, he was the right chartered accountant. Yes, this is the right kind of profession on this in this country. Yes, these are the people whom I can trust and believe. So I must act in a way. What is a professional behavior? Number one is that I can never discredit my profession, and I cannot therefore knowingly engage in any activity that impairs or might impair integrity, objectivity, and good reputation of my profession. Now, there is another thing also that, as I say, the third party is likely to conclude that my act was not really professional. Even that should be avoided. Another thing about this is that when I promote myself, see what is a professional behavior. I want to promote myself obviously because I want more work. Now I want to promote myself. While promoting the work, he shall not bring the profession to disrepute. What will happen when he will bring the profession to disrepute in his personal capacity, when he is going for his own, he is asking about telling about himself. The accountant shall be honest and truthful and shall not make exaggerated claims. About what? Exaggerated claims about services he offers. What happens is I came to one of you. I came to know about the services you offer. Then I start telling others, yes, service to my company de sakta hu. I have given this service. Exaggerated claim. I have never done it because I learned from you some techniques of it in a lecture or in personal interview. I feel yes, I can put up that claim. Yes, I can do and try to pull the work by that. Or by putting up exaggerated claim on qualifications. अरे मैंने तो 5 MBA किया है. कोई पूछता नहीं आपके पास सर्टिफिकेट है क्या 5. But it is an exaggerated claim saying how best I am in the whole world. Saying that exaggerated claim on experience I have. I may not have a lot of experience in various fields, but I am telling others that I have. So I shouldn't do it as a chartered accountant. Disparaging references or unsubstantiated comparison with work of others. This we regularly do. When I get a new client, generally I will say क्या काम किया है बेकार है अच्छा हुआ मेरे पास आए. I'm trying to compare myself with the work of the other and making him look little, making him look not right. Actually, it should be the other way around. When I get a file in my office and I see the file and I say that yes, the file is well maintained, I'll tell the client two things. One, I cannot give service better than what that chartered accountant has given. I see from that file, yes, this is the best service. And number two, I will not take any money less than what you paid him. If you are accepting this, please come to me. Otherwise, you may have another reason. You shifted from Andheri to Mulund and my office is in Mulund. You come to me. That's fine. That's a different reason. But these two things I'm telling you. Don't compare yourself with others in an unsubstantiated manner. You have not seen what work he has done for that client. And you are just trying to say. Any direct or indirect measures to advertise the profession other than as given in the advertisement guidelines. We are supposed to give a write-up. A write-up is allowed on social media also. And there are advertisement guidelines whereas anything beyond advertisement guidelines, we have FAQs also on advertisement guidelines given by the institute. And some of the FAQs will really surprise you. Whether you can have whether you can advertise your firm. Yes, you can under advertisement guidelines. If we have time, we can speak on advertisement guidelines, various issues. But that is one of the part of ethical standards. But in any case, beyond advertisement guidelines, whatever it is said, we should do it. Now, while applying the conceptual framework, we do a lot of things where we'll not go into this particular thing. I'm just telling you, this is slide number 12. There is a third party, reasonable and informed third party test for everything that we do in the ethical standards. A reasonable and informed third-party test is considered by the professional accountant about whether the same conclusion would likely to be reached by another party from the perspective of a reasonable and informed third party. And the third one, that's number one. So what it is trying to tell me, that if he is reasonable and informed third party, will he come to the same conclusion I reached in my audit report, in my certificates, or he will reach some other conclusion? If he will reach some other conclusion, I have not followed ethics. Or those 5 things I wanted to follow. This is number one. Second test is if the third party, it says that the third party need not be even accountant. If he is able to evaluate and understand what I did, then even the other than the chartered accountant can also be a third party in this third party test. This word third party test is used in various parts of part 2 and part 3 of the of our ethical standards books. Now, friends, this is now application. Friends, we talked of principle. When we try to apply, there is something called threads. We need to identify the threads, understand the facts and circumstances which might compromise the compliance with the principles. So I should be aware of this. Understanding the fact and circumstances, the relation or my professional activity, interest and relationship that might get compromised, I must be able to find out. Now, these are the types of threats. What are the type of threats that I can face in going for that 5 principles that I want to follow? But these are the threats, and let us understand what are these threats. First threat is self-interest threat. Friends, what is a self-interest threat? By name, of course, something you will get, something you will not get. I'll explain this. Self-interest threat is the threat of financial or other interests that will inappropriately influence professional accountant judgment or behavior. So someone has created a, he is giving me too much money for the work I am doing. I should normally charge for, at my level of practice, 5,000. He's giving me 50,000. He's created a self-interest rate. He has created some other interest, like he is offering me foreign travel. He is offering me some costly gifts. He is creating interest in me for me to deviate from my ethical standards of behavior. You've got all 5. We'll relook at all 5 if you want. Every time we talk about the threats, 5 standards are integrity, objectivity, professional competence and due care, confidentiality, and professional behavior. So he's trying to create interest in me to deviate from that. Second is self-review threat. What is a self-review threat? If I do a particular work before doing audit, I am the person who will never say it was wrong. Suppose that I am reviewing it. Suppose I did some work and I am the reviewer at the time of audit. Audit means I am reviewing the whole accounts and financial statements. And that requires review of that work also, which I did previously. Will you say I was wrong? Never, right? This is called self-review. I am reviewing my own work. And in that case, it is likely that there will be a self-review threat that subsequently I come to know that what I did was wrong, or the cost could have been lower for my client, or whatever else. That I will never agree. This is a self-review threat because my own review of my own work, I'll never criticize or say no. So another individual within the accounting firm. So not only in our case, the self-review threat is also for the work done by other partners. So suppose my partner has given some advice on income tax or GST, and I find there is something wrong in that, and therefore I need to give qualification that these things were not done by this organization, and therefore they are liable for penalty, give contingent liability or provide actual liability, not done, qualify. Will I do it? I must do it here. Self-review threat will be my own partner has given that, so I cannot, naturally, I cannot comment. I cannot review my own work. I will not review my firm's work, and therefore I will not comment. And that is a self-review threat. Now, next is advocacy threat. What is an advocacy threat? I reach a position at which my objectivity is compromised. I'll tell you this. Just recently, there was a public issue on a small exchange by a particular company. One of my friend did some work about restatement. You know, in case of public issue, you'll have to do restatement of the past 3 years. In case of main exchange, 5 years, small exchange, 3 years accounts will have to be restated. 3 or 3.5 years. Now we are in the second half, so 3.5 years accounts will have to be restated. So he restated the account. Now the person for whom he did the work was his friend. So now the public issue is actually announced on small exchange. He rang me up and asked me a question. Can I promote this issue for my friend? Means, can I send this to on my WhatsApp to various persons around me? Can I promote this? I said, what? Suppose now later on you will be the auditor also of this particular company. Will you, in the very first year, you find something seriously wrong? Will you be able to give a qualified or adverse opinion on this? It will be very difficult. You have reached a stage by telling him, saying that this is the right person to invest, this is the right project to invest, the right management to invest. You have reached a stage where you have advocated him. Advocate word is advocated him, means presenting him in such a way you can't withdraw now from that position, and so you will compromise your principles and support him. This is the advocacy threat. Familiarity threat. Friends, familiarity threat, you are all aware. Long association with the person. Many of us have clients for 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. Very long association with senior person in that family. Then again, their next generation, etc. This long relationship with the client what will happen because of long relationship? Actually, you will go for marriages with them. They will also come to your house. They will come, you will have dinners together. You will go for, excursion together. You'll go for various, you will do many activities together. Now, your familiarity has reached a stage that you are either too sympathetic to their interest or too accepting their work. What it means? What is about too sympathetic to their interest? I asked one builder client was with my friend, and he came to me for something he wanted to ask me about that balance sheet, etc. So he came to me. I said, I asked my friend who came with that balance sheet with that builder. I said, why have you not qualified section 73, 76, that is deposits? There is a clear violation year after year. This person has taken deposit, and in Caro you are not mentioned that this is a violation. Why you are done? बोला मेरा अच्छा फ्रेंड है यार, कॉलेज का फ्रेंड है 20 बरस से, ये जो इसका लड़का, तो कैसे लिख सकते हैं? Familiarity, long familiarity is what you are doing. You are too sympathetic to the interest. Saying no, that he has defaulted in deposit rules will attract penalties from ROC for him. So I am very sympathetic. नहीं जाने दो ना, अपना ही आदमी है. दूसरा, for this is about to accepting their word. So something he does wrong, but I can't say no. I don't want to reveal it. Saying that इतना लंबा association है, कहाँ इसको trouble में करेंगे, कहाँ इसका comment करेंगे. The regulator will immediately, suppose 45IA, my client is doing the activity which 50% rule, that if the 50% of the assets and 50% of the earning is from financial asset, it is a company need to be registered as NBFC under 45I, right? And I came to know that my client is doing such activity. If I have too much familiar with him, I will not report. Accepting the work of the client, which I would not have otherwise accepted the way he did it because of this. Now, because of the over familiarity, I'll do it. Now, intimidation threat. What is intimidation? All of you know. Intimidation is pressurizing you to do something which you don't want to, right? So there are two kinds of pressure. One is the actual pressure and one is a perceived pressure to the objectivity that you have with you. Now, what is a perceived pressure? You shouldn't take, I generally tell people, don't take clients who are in political circles, because there will be a perceived pressure on you. You see how he acts, anything which comes in his way, he will eliminate, right? You have seen him eliminating year after year, anything that comes in his way of progress. One thing, you have a perceived pressure. Now you want to qualify his sugar factory accounts, and now you can't do it because you will also be eliminate it. Now, this is a perceived pressure. He has never said he will eliminate you. It's a he is doing with everybody. He might do it with me. Perceived pressure, right? This is intimidation. Second intimidation is the actual pressure. He has sent somebody to you to tell you two things. सी सर अभी आप रिपोर्ट अच्छा दे दो नहीं तो नेक्स्ट ईयर से आप नहीं रहेंगे. फर्स्ट इंटिमिडेशन. सेकंड इंटिमिडेशन इज कि देख लेंगे बाद में. तो दोनों इंटिमिडेशन हो गए ना. बोथ द थिंग्स आर वेरी डिस्टर्बिंग टू अस. सो इंटिमिडेशन इज पॉसिबल over the undue influence over the accountant. So this is what we should understand. With these threats, there are 5 kinds of threats: self-interest threat, self-review threat, advocacy threat, familiarity threat, and intimidation threat. Our threats are whatever I am talking today is nothing new to us, but we are only revisiting that to get it again in us to say whether we are behaving as per the code of ethics or whether we are really ethical. I started saying all of us feel that we are ethical. Are we really ethical? Whether these threats make me say that I will not follow some of the principle. Now there are some examples of various threats. Self-interest threat can be by holding a financial interest or giving loan or guarantees from an organization I audit. So generally, the loans are given to the relatives or otherwise such a self-interest is created. Incentive compensation arrangement. You know, many people come to us as chartered accountant. मैं आपके wife के नाम पे register करो, मैं commission दूंगा, ये करूंगा. Maybe he is your client also, but you are still, you know, accepting commissions in the name of some relative and doing the work. So participating in incentive compensation. Accountant having access to corporate assets for personal use. बोले कभी भी आप हमारे दिल्ली में आके कभी भी आप आना चाहते हो या किधर भी जयपुर में आना चाहते हो तो मेरे गेस्ट हाउस में रह सकते हैं यूजिंग द पर्सनल. गाड़ी तो कभी भी आप बोलो मर्सिडीज भेज दूंगा. मेरे पास नानो है लेकिन मुझे मर्सिडीज मिलेगी तो मैं इमीडिएटली आई एम इमीडिएटली इंटरेस्टेड. सो दिस काइंड ऑफ सेल्फ इंटरेस्ट कैन बी क्रिएटेड. अकाउंटेंट बीइंग ऑफर्ड अ गिफ्ट or a special treatment. Special treatment is like going to foreign countries, gift, very costly gifts in terms of diamonds or something is offered to you to create a self-interest threat. Accountant being offered, this is what. Now this is self-interest threat. There are others also, self-review threat also. We can see what is a self-review threat examples. Determining suppose I have done the business combination of a particular client. And that business combination, after it is done, I am auditing that particular organization. It will create self-review threat. Whether what work I did, I'll never comment. Coming to the advocacy threat, the example of advocacy threat will be opportunity to manipulate information in the prospectus. In a sense that I am advocating the person to an extent that even a wrong information I am certifying because of that advocacy threat. Advocacy means whatever I did in the past, I am trying to say that yes, it is right. This is a familiarity threats. Also, there is an example that when an immediate or close family member is employed in the organization, they can say that I will remove him. I will remove him. That I will remove that person from my organization, especially or is he has a long association with individuals influencing business decision. Of course, that we have already talked. We will say that I'll remove this person and that will intimidate me. That actually this immediate or close member is doing something, making a decision about financial reporting of the organization. If he is removed, it is intimidation threat. Familiarity threat is he is taking a decision and therefore I'm actually certifying that decision to be right. That is a familiarity threat because I'm too familiar with my relatives and he is taking some decision on financial reporting in our organization which I'm accepting because of the familiarity which I have with them. Intimidation threat is obviously the threat that you can see that, as I say, dismissal of the person who is with you on the disagreement, and individual attempting to influence the any awarding of a contract or application of accounting principle is not allowed. Now, coming to the acceptable level of threat. Now, we need not necessarily think that every threat is a problem to us. We can always reduce it to the acceptable level. What is that? You will say, what is an acceptable level? Actually, there is nothing acceptable. If it's a threat, it's a threat. Now, see what is acceptable level. Acceptable level is a level at which professional accountant using a reasonable and informed third party test is likely to conclude that the accountant complies with the fundamental principles. So to bring it to acceptable level, what should be done is given in the subsequent paragraphs of this particular um, um, ethical standards. Now coming to this, the factors for evaluating this particular threats are there. Now here, of course, I must remain alert to these particular threats, etc., and factors which can be qualitative as well as quantitative. And if he becomes aware of anything that facts and circumstances might create a threat, he will reevaluate the threats that he reevaluate every time that what he is doing is right or not. Now coming to this example, see, there can be new information to you from time to time. You have evaluated the threat, you have brought it down to acceptable level. I'll come to that, what is acceptable. But coming to that, you have done that. Now you got new information. You have to reevaluate your threats. What is the new information we are talking about? Scope of professional service is expanded. Now my professional service includes some additional items. I must see that there is no threat to the work as a whole. Not to the first, I was doing only audit. Now I do a lot of other consultancy work. Whether there is a self-review threat, self-advocacy threat, etc. Whether it is now there because I am doing now something in addition to audit. So first is that the scope is expanded. Second is the client becomes a listed entity. Now the whole ethical standard says that for listed entity you have to be very cautious, because the listed entity accounts should be read by whole world, and therefore you have to be more cautious. You have to be much more stringent in having the ethical principles followed. Coming to the or acquiring a new business unit, if the client acquires a new business unit, if the client acquires a new business unit, then obviously you cannot. You will have to see that the threats are. I think it's going again and again to the next slide. Yeah, evaluating threats. Now here you have to see that whether your firm merges. Now one is the client is merging. Second is your firm is merging. Your firms are merging. You do not know the other partners of that firm which got merged have some interest in which now you have got all those threats which have clearly been now visible to you. I'll start with that later. So coming to this, that we will see that this is not, when the firm merges, there will be a threat. Now, when the professional accountant jointly engages with two clients and a dispute has arisen between those two clients, what is an additional information? You have two clients, now they are having a dispute. There can be some threats. Should I keep one client against another? No, first one. It's fundamental. 22 slide. So here, there's another thing is that then the clients are fighting. Now let's see the change in professional accountants, personal or immediate family relationship. Now Bagaria sir has got a son married, and now his daughter-in-law is our convener of this study circle. Now the new relationship has taken up. Similar thing can happen in our own life, right? So you married the daughter of your best customer, that is a client. Now a new threats will start immediately, that you cannot bring it down to acceptable levels. Threats are there, and you will have to do something which is given in subsequent slides. Yeah, so this is 20 gaya again, है ना? थोड़ा सा पहले 23 में okay, chalo. Now what is to address the threat? What I should do? Accountant shall address the threat either by eliminating the threat or reducing them to acceptable level. Eliminating a threat requires the interest or relationship that created the threat need to be eliminated. For example, if my brother is employed in an organization and I want to take up an audit, he is in a key management personnel, either he has to resign or I have to resign. Only two things can possible. So if my brother is taking up a directorship, I have to ask him either don't take it up or I resign. And because that new relationship, so I will reduce it to acceptable level either by having that relationship or interest excluded, that is elimination. Second is applying the safeguards. Uh, this is examples. I think we should go to the next one. Go to the next one. Yeah. It's okay. Now coming to applying the safeguards wherever available, they are applied, and then we will come to applying the safeguards, how we do it, or declining the professional activity.
So ये change करना है क्या?
नहीं हो गया आगे ये safeguards हैं तो ये उसके बारे में okay. So in eliminating the threats, we will have something, 1 minute prior to this. In eliminating the threat, we will have some situation where threat can only be addressed by declining the work or ending the specific professional activity, because the threat created cannot be eliminated or safeguards are not capable of being applied to reduce the threat to an acceptable level. Okay. Coming to the safeguards. What are the safeguards that are possible? First safeguard that is possible is to communicate with those charged with governance. भाई ये problem आ गया मेरा, ये threat है, मैं क्या करूँ? So communicate, ये threat है, I'm going to take the action. Now, what are the different actions the institute has said that is possible in this particular case? Suppose there is either a self-interest threat, self-advocacy threat, or whatever different type of threats we have talked. We can have additional time or qualified personnel employed on the assignment to see that those things are taken care of by someone else, by additional staff, so that we are sure that these threats, there are no real threat. There is no advocacy. What I said in the past is right, and somebody else also checks it that it is right. Yes. Having an appropriate reviewer, this is a reviewer that I can have an internal reviewer or external reviewer who is not a member of my team, and review that and say, yes, all your decisions are right. There is no threat. There is no threat that we have seen. We can sign the account. Using different partners, engagement teams, involving another firm to perform or re-perform. Now, involving another firm to perform or re-perform generally eliminates all threats, because your work is checked by somebody else completely. So all the threats can be eliminated in this case, and separating teams which are dealing. Now large firms separate the teams. The team which is doing the income tax or the team returns or the normal practice, another team that is doing the appellate practice, the third team doing GST practice, and indirect tax and advisory is completely segregated into limited companies. They are not a part of this. We as chartered accountants, small chartered accountant, our practice is such as 70% of the chartered accountant are proprietors in this country, and this type of thing, separating the work or is not possible. Always take help of your friends to see that work done by you is reviewed by someone else, and tell it that whatever you feel about my work, you please tell me, and if I have done right or not. If I have not done right according to you, it will be similar to third party test, that he comes and checks and then finally he says everything is right. Or if he says something appears to be wrong, I need to correct that. By how to reduce it to acceptable level, either I'll qualify or I'll leave the job, whatever I want to do in doing this, right? Coming to the next one. This is done. Now we will go to one of the extremely important thing that I want to tell you all about, is about the recent amendments. Recent amendments. Recent amendments. Yeah. Recent amendment. Friends, the institute has created a PPT on recent amendments, and institute has third one. खुला हुआ है, नीचे होगा वो, नहीं ये नहीं, ये होगा, हाँ ये नहीं, ये भी नहीं, ये भी नहीं है, ये भी नहीं है, ये भी नहीं है, चौथा किधर है? नहीं, there were 4, right? These are 3. ये दूसरा है, वो नहीं, ये हाँ, नहीं तो बंद करके वापस चल, ये सब बंद करो, ओपन है, बताया करो, और एक मिनट ओपन हुआ है, कहाँ ना कहाँ ओपन हुआ है, This is a very interesting thing about the this particular PPT that institute has made about the current recent amendments. I'll start because we have limited time. Friends, I already told you that there was a code up to 2009, 2019, we revised this code and it's about to be revised. Previously, we had only two volume 1, volume 2. Now we have added volume 3, which is about the case laws in the particular code of ethics. टोटली बंद करो सर, वापस अपना जो फाइल कॉपी किया वहां से आओ. There were many changes. Just don't look at that. Look at me. There were many changes because if you look at that, you will get disturbed. There were very major changes done over the previous volume and volume 1. One is NOCLA. NOCLA, you must have just heard what is NOCLA. NOCLA is responding to non-compliance with laws and regulation. Friends, we have an auditing standard on that. Ask somebody to speak on the say 250 auditing standard or non-compliance with laws and regulation. But the ethical standards on NOCLA, which are introduced in 19, applicable for 1720, are completely different, are very, very vast, far beyond the auditing standard requires us to. We'll see that what it is. So one is NOCLA. Second is restriction of tax services to audit clients. You will be surprised. They have given which tax service I can give, which I cannot give, which I can give to non-public interest entity, what I can give to public interest entity, also, and where, what precaution, what safeguard I have to take while giving this tax services, which was not there in the previous edition. Prohibition of management responsibility to be taken up. Now you know already if it is a company under section 144, we cannot take up a management responsibility, right? But what about the non-company cases? Now the ethical standard says that we cannot take up the management responsibility, and we will see what it is. Pendrive hospital,
एक बंद हो गया ना, शेयर स्क्रीन बंद.
Okay. So prohibition of management responsibilities. Now another thing that is there in this is that there were restriction on fees. You say there is a restriction, there is no restriction on getting how much fees that you get. Restriction was on having a particular client or particular group of clients in which I have group of related parties, where my income from that party was a particular percentage of my total fees. If that was so, then there is a restriction which has been changed. We'll come to that. Now coming to the part 4, etc. I have told you. Now compliance, there is a case given by the institute how the ethical standard come under there, why we have to follow the standard or not go. What is the management responsibility? Now management responsibility, we'll see what it is. But management responsibility shall not be assumed, and but they say something they have distinguished between what is a management responsibility and what the chartered accountant can do. Advising, recommending, or assisting the management to discharge its responsibility is not by itself a management responsibility. For example, they need to file a return or they need to take a view on a particular issue, that you can aid him, you can help him because you have the knowledge. This is not taking up. Decision making has to go to that person. All the decisions are relating to about their assets, their technology, their employees, all decisions will be made by management. That is a management decision. And if you see, I have no time, otherwise I have made a separate MPT on various issues in what management can take up and what we can take up. So otherwise, we can still provide administrative services, which are word processing service, administrative statutory form filing, submitting forms to the instruction of the client, monitoring statutory filing dates, and advising on audit clients for the audit client for that day. So these are administrative activities that we are allowed to do. There is something called public interest entity. I have been using this word public interest entity. Friends, public interest entity is taken as an entity which is a listed company and or it is a bank or an insurance company. Now listed company, friends, definition.
ये नहीं है सर, कौन सा वाला मुझे बताइए।
Code of Ethics recent amendment is there.
I don't.
So this is now this definition also has been changed. We'll come to that. Now documentation. Now firm is required to document how threats are resolved. I told you that this is in the beginning only, that there was a slide on that. The fact, the accounting principles that need to be resolved, communication with the parties, courses, the course of action that you have taken, an accountant attempt to address the issue has been. In Nokla especially, it is more important to come to the flag and we talk about it. Now, important thing, contingent fees. How many of you feel that my fee cannot be contingent on something? Friends, contingency means that it is either a percentage of an outcome of a service, percentage of outcome, or it may or something may or may not happen, and on that basis my fee is decided. For example, there is a fraud and he says, I'll give you a percentage of a fraud, but if fraud is not found out by you, nothing is, so it is.
This is the one?
No, not
No,
this.
sir, मुझे बता दीजिए कौन सा है।
एक COE करके है ना?
पेन ड्राइव में?
नहीं अगले बार में इसमें जाओ ये खोलो इसमें ना एक PPT ऑन COE ये CA रिसेंट अमेंडमेंट ये वाला नीचे उसके हाँ
ठीक है, मैं
इसका 11 स्लाइड 11 F5 करना
इसको escape करो फिर।
होते का F5 नहीं
ये ना?
I think you can see from here in the correct. Yeah, fine, good, great. Now coming to this, a contingent fee. Now we will see what is a contingent fee. So I told you what is a contingent fee is it is depends on the contingency, and obviously our act says that such a contingent fee is not allowed. Percentage of profit or finding of my service, my fee cannot be based on that finding or a percentage of that finding. So this is basic, right? But it says that unless permitted under regulation 192. So we should know what is regulation 192. Now council has permitted, there are two things what council has permitted. Under 192 regulation 192, council has permitted in many cases for the chartered accountants to get a fee which is a percentage of the work done or on the findings. I'll tell you some of them. He says that it cannot be done except in the following cases. If you are a receiver or a liquidator, percentage of realization or percentage of disbursement of asset for a liquidator. If you are working as a cooperative society, now what happens for an auditor of a cooperative society? Cooperative society laws are in every state, and the fee is decided on different way in different states. So institute has said if you are an auditor of a cooperative society, fee may be based on percentage of paid up capital or working capital or gross or net income or profit. Why this has to be said is because there are different laws in different states and they are decided by the government. Coming to the other, if you are a valuer in direct taxes or duties, it can be property value, percentage of property value. If you are a management consultancy service, then various cases which institute has said you can take this percentage fee. Fundraising services, you know, some people carry only the receipt books of some trust and keep on asking you, "Arey, deta hai kya 5,000 de do, 10,000 de do." You know, fundraising services, it can be percentage of fund raised. If you are doing only that service, not auditor, you can be. There are some auditors who take part in sugar factory elections also. either auditors or sugar factory, but that's a different thing. We are not supposed to do. Now coming to debt recovery service. I think we felt initially that we can't have debt recovery service. We can do debt recovery service and it can be a percentage of debt recovered we can charge. In case of services related to cost optimization, the fees can be based on percentage of benefit derived. And in case of insolvency professionals, obviously the code says whatever fee is there, IP is getting as a percentage, that is also allowed because it is allowed by the government law regulations. The last line is important. Fee for rendering non-assurance services to non-audit client can be a contingent fee. Startling thing. We have never thought of it. That if I have a client who is in audit, whether it's a public interest entity or otherwise it's a limited company or not a limited company, other client, and I am not doing any assurance service or audit service. That means I am not doing certification, I am not doing audit, I am not certifying anything as true and correct, true and fair, nothing. Then any service I give to such a person can be contingent fee. You must read this section yourself and regulation 192 to first think that it is possible and what is possible with the client as a percentage. If you feel that is going to be a major advantage to you. Coming to certain provisions that are applicability of certain provision of code of ethics, we will see three things and we are saying one by one. Now we will see about the fees. Fees is a very important subject for all of us. So let us see what the guidance is there to us about fee. There are two sections, 330 and 410 of part 1 of the ethical code. About the fees, it is said that level and nature of fee might create a self-interest threat to compliance with one or more fundamental principles. Friends, level all of us know. More the fee, more likelihood that I will find a threat. I'll not find a particular fundamental principle being followed. So level of fees, I know. What is the nature of fee? The characteristic of a fee. Fee can be given in different manner. I told you some relative can be paid, some different way you are compensated. So this may have creation of self-interest threat. Now level of fees, the fees quoted might impact the professional accountant's ability to perform the professional service in accordance with the standard that we all know. Now coming to this, the professional accountant can quote whatever fee he considers appropriate. Statement number 1. 2. Quoting fee, but however, it says quoting fee lower than another accountant is not unethical. So why? Because that provision which was there for undercutting has gone in 2006. So now current position is I can quote any fee I like, and quoting fee lower than the other chartered accountant is not unethical. Now the self-interest threat will be created to compliance with the principles of due care if the fee quoted is so low, which will make it difficult for me to perform the engagement. So I am undercutting to an extent that even my costs are not met. In that case, what I'll do, I'll try to cut my costs even further to what I was about to do, and that will create many types of threats. So I shouldn't quote as low in fee also. Now, another thing I should know is, that when a fee is being given to me, I should tell the client what I'll deliver, what are my deliverables very clearly. Against that, he should be made aware of the terms of engagement. Then if it is, of course, if whether the level of fee is set by a regulator, then all these considerations are not there. What are the safeguards? Safeguards is for this problem of fee being quoted in a particular ways that we can adjust the level of fee. I have myself, our firm has declined several C&AG audits saying fee is too low. Either we adjust to our level or we don't want to go. So adjust to your level of cost, beyond cost. Having appropriate reviewer obviously can be one of the ways of doing this. Now coming to the other part of 410, this was 330. Now coming to 410, it talks about the firm expressing an audit audit opinion, which represent a large proportion of the total fees of the firm. Then the dependence on this client or concern about losing the client will create self-interest or intimidation threat. If I am having an opinion where I am giving an opinion to where my large proportion of my fee comes from a particular client as compared to my total fee. Now, an example of action to safeguard obviously is increasing the client base. So if you are taking 50% fee from one of the group in your total, you must take additional clients. Easy to say, difficult to actually get new clients, right? So, but it is one of the safeguards that you can do is have the more clients. Now, second is the self-interest and interpolation threat is also created when the large portion of the revenue of one partner or one office of the firm. So what happens is I have a branch, and of course, another thing it is said that the remuneration of that partner is dependent on the earnings. So for example, I have a branch in Uttar Pradesh, say Lucknow. Now Lucknow branch partner will get a percentage of what he earns. Now that can be a threat because I have set up a Lucknow branch to do only one party audit or one party work, comprehensive work. I have a partner there who does that work. His own remuneration depends on what he earns. Clear threat to the firm as a whole. They say that you don't look at your own total fees, look at the fees of any branch or any unit of your firm also, where you are giving the income to your partners based on the fee earned by that particular unit or the branch. In that case, the threat will be created. Of course, having appropriate reviewer, etc., is also given. Now, coming to this particular thing, what initially institute said, what before amendment, what was said? It was said that total gross annual professional fee from the audit client and its related entities, if it was 15% or more of the total fees, it was considered as significant in the past. We'll see the amendment. So this is there are two things that were there. One is about the 15%. It was only one single provision on 15%. See here. For now, earlier it was saying that for 2 consecutive years, your gross annual professional fee from audit client represented more than 15%. Here it was say audit client. Now it is added audit client and related parties has been added recently, and that 15% also has changed. For a public interest entity, the disclosure is required where 2 consecutive years. That means the first 2 years I can have this percentage. Third year, what I have to do, I'll tell you. First 2 years, you find that you need a disclosure in the third year if your gross annual professional fee from audit client and its related parties represent more than 40% of the total fees of non-public interest entities. And for a public interest entity, if it is 20% or more of the fees, then there is the relative size is more in this case, right? So this is where the amendment is that it was 15%. Now they say you can have 20% for a public interest entity, and you can have a 40% in case of non-public interest entity. Total percentage of total fee from a particular audit client or related parties that you got for first 2 years. Now what you do with it? There is another way also. There was another exemptions also. It's not working again. Yeah. Let's go to the next. See, there was another ceiling that there was a ceiling that if you are earning up to 5 lakhs, see, that was for the new chartered accountant. If you are earning only up to 5 lakhs, this provision doesn't apply to you. So now that has been raised to 20 lakhs because of the reduction, the money value has gone down. So up to 20 lakhs if you are earning as a proprietor, new chartered accountants to go in practice, there has to be incentive. They will be dependent on only 2 or 3 clients in their practice, and therefore up to 20 lakhs, this provision doesn't apply to them. Another thing is that where to report. Previously, we were supposed to report to our client. Now it was very dangerous to report to a client because once client knows you are completely dependent on him, he will take advantage of it. So now the provision has been changed to say report to the institute. And on the website of Ethical Standard Board, a form is given. If you find that your fee is exceeding the given limit, Up to December of the third year, you can file a form with the institute saying that this is the situation. What institute will do with this? Do nothing. Unless there is a disciplinary proceeding against you. And in that disciplinary proceeding, if something is known, something is stated that that you have done something wrong, then that will be checked. Another thing is that this provision doesn't apply when you have the government companies, public, and you earn fees from these parties. And now the regulator also has been added. So any regulator like RBI, what you are doing, audit of RBI, etc., is you are not covered in this provision. Now you report only to the institute. And now total fees was from audit client. Now total fees is total fees of the firm, not the audit client, because that was an anomaly and that has now been corrected. Now 5 lakhs has become 20 lakhs, I told you. Yeah, extremely important part of what I wanted to tell you on NOCLAR. This is the last thing we'll talk before we close. There are several things we could have talked full day. Now coming to NOCLAR, what is responding to non-compliance with laws and regulation? There are two sections, section 260 and 360. 360 is still not made applicable to what I'm saying. Now refer to what is non-compliance. It refers to an act of omission or commission committed by a client or employer contrary to prevailing law and regulation. You know what is omission? I should have done something under a law, I have not done. It is an omission. What is commission? I am deliberately disclosing something to law which is incorrect, which is not right. I am giving a wrong impression to the regulators, saying that I have complied with the law. So I have done either of this. Either I omitted to give information, or I gave an information, or I did something which I should have done, I omitted to do, or I gave some information or did something which was wrong, but I'm trying to conceal that. Now, in such a situation, recognizing such situation is difficult. First, you understand that any non-compliant, I told you hundreds of laws are applicable to the organizations, and you are supposed to know. All other professionals will wash their hands off. Company secretary will say, I know only, I'm a company secretary. I'm just telling you, if I was practicing, I will say, I know only SEBI laws and ROC and company law. Don't ask me beyond. A lawyer in a particular thing will say, I do only practice in this law. I ask me only about that. Chartered accountant cannot say so, but the ethical standard itself says that it's very often very difficult to get this kind of non-compliance under the laws and regulation non-compliance. But it can also be very stressful for the member, because moment it is found out in a work that you do with a client, it is very stressful. Moment that is found out, you start thinking, should I report? If I should, whether I should report or not report. Second is, if I am reporting, how I should report, whether I should give notes to account, whether I should give UOM, whether I should qualify, or whether I should say adverse opinion. What action I should take, how I should speak to the client. Client may be knowing that there is a non-compliance. Now I have also come to know it's very stressful, because I can leave the I can even lose the job. So it is a very stressful situation for any accountant who is either employed or who is doing a work as a chartered accountant in practice. Now, accepting that, still I have an ethical responsibility not to turn a blind eye to such a situation. As ethics require us to see that appropriate action is taken in this. And NOCLAR, in this particular provisions, are dealing with this kind of situations and guiding us how to do that. Now, non-compliance can be of two types. One is that it will affect the determination of material amounts or disclosures in the financial statements. Up to this, everyone knows. We do this and we qualify. Second part you see in ethical standards, which is asked for, other laws and regulation, the compliance of which may be fundamental to entities' business and operations. Now here, what is fundamental to a business operation? Following DPCO order may be fundamental to the operations of a company which is producing medicines. having the pollution control laws followed may be fundamental to the operations of a chemical industry. So there is something fundamental and the laws and regulation relating to that. For example, for a broker, as I say, SEBI rules relating to how the broker should act. There are regulations. The banks have regulation from RBI. So there are something which is very fundamental to the entity's business and operations, and those laws can also be violated, or there is an omission and whatever we discussed, and that is to be also commented upon or thought about in ethics. And they are giving examples of fraud, corruption, bribery, money laundering, terrorist activities, security markets, etc., are the examples given to us. Now, something is not to be seen by us, in spite of saying this, that's very general, saying that matters which are inconsequential means it has no materiality. Materiality, friends, is there in accounting standard. While doing audit, also there is a materiality. There is a standard on materiality, and there is a materiality even in ethical standard. So it is inconsequential, immaterial. Don't look at it. Means this whatever we are saying is not applicable. Personal misconduct unrelated to business activity. A director is using a car, he crossed a red signal, paid the fine, payment is made by the company. Breaking of law of particular type, but not related to the business of the client. Not related to his business. It is his personal problem that what he created. So that is not to be seen. Non-compliance with other than by. Now, if the non-compliance is by the directors, that is those charging governance, or by the employer in case if you are employed, then if the non-compliance is by the key management personnel or those who are working under the direction of the client or employer. That means even those outsiders, either the employees of that organization who are working under directions are also covered. The non-compliance of law by them also is covered here. And also about the direction. Direction means even the contractor is covered. A very funny case you must have read in the paper very recently, that a chief minister of a state eliminated whole of his villa by lights in Diwali. He had taken that light obviously from general electricity pole. It was found out by the opposition party that he did that. It has come in paper. I'm not saying something wrong here. Some of you may have read that. So he said, I was not responsible. I told a contractor to have this illumination. He had taken it from public, utility services में उसमें लगा दिया उसने connection. मुझे जैसे ही मालूम पड़ा, मैंने shift करके मेरे मीटर में लगाया. इसके मीटर में भी नहीं लग सकता है. That is also wrong because no meter, house meter will have such a big illumination on a villa. You cannot have the electricity meter of that size. So anyway, you cannot say a contractor did it and I didn't know about it. This requires you to see that anyone who is under the direction of a client, he was under direction to do a work, so he is also covered. Now, accountant required to address NOCLAR when and only if he encounters it to the providing a service. So suppose I completed my audit, I completed my advisory, and thereafter I read in paper or from social media that there is some non-compliance. That is not covered in NOCLAR. NOCLAR is covered only when and if it is in the time when in the course of provision of the service. So I'm doing an audit, I found out something. Obviously, appropriate authority has to be found out to report. Friends, there's a comparison in 250, SA 250 and NOCLAR. Now, the major comparison is that the SA 250 requires the laws having direct effect on determination of material amount and disclosures is in 250. Here, it can be even for non-financial items. NOCLAR is also non-financial items. SA 250 is only on financial statements. Now, another major thing is that SA 250 is not talking about any stakeholder other than the shareholders. Here there are all type of stakeholders, investor, creditor, employees, and general public. If it is affected by NOCLAR, it is covered in NOCLAR regulations. Another major difference is that SA requires you to not necessarily you will report, but you need not prevent. Now here no-clerk provisions, if you read the original provision, it says that if it is something is about to happen, something in the company, something with your client is about to happen, which will result into non-compliance with laws and regulation, you must immediately alert the client and get it rectified. See, this is a huge responsibility. Even during the work, I came to know that he is about to, he has started violating and it is getting increased. It is, his violation will increase substantially. I must deter him from doing that is the responsibility under no class. This is a different responsibility and obviously a third party test which is there, which was not there in other. Now here, will not go for earlier provision. Only senior accountant is covered. That's fine. Now here again, the definition I told you, the definition of the entity was all listed entities were covered. Now listed entities having net worth more than 250 crores means entity having net worth more than 250 crores and whose shares are listed, then only they are covered. So entities, even though listed having less than 250 crore net worth, are not covered in NOCLA. Section 360 will be extended to all listed entities later on. So this is what I told you, it is not there. Now coming to this, we need not go through. This is where now it is about consolidation of accounts. Again, if you are doing consolidation work, you find a non-compliance with laws and regulation of an entity which you are consolidating. During that consolidation, if you come to know, you have all the responsibilities. Beyond that, you have no responsibilities. That is what this says. So this was all non-compliance with laws and about this. There are many other things I have done. Since we have 5 more minutes, I will tell you about some of the. There are many recent decisions of the institute which are also there as a part of this particular thing. Anyone wants to ask me on NOCLAR? NOCLAR is extremely important provision and it's very, very difficult to follow. Anyone has anything to ask me? Otherwise, I'll go to 43. No, 44. Is undercutting violative? Friends, clause 12 of part 1 of schedule 1949, it was saying that undercutting was not there. I told you 2006 it was removed. And quoting fee lower than the other chartered accountant is not unethical unless the level of fee creates a self-interest threat. Whether minimum fees for audit assignment. Now there were minimum fees. I don't know how many of you know up to 2008 when my firm became a larger firm, we had a restriction 3,000 rupees or below that I can't take audit. Then it became 6,000, then it became 12,000. Those days, all that has been repeated in 2011. Now we have issued the minimum scale of fees of professional accountant. I don't know how many of you really get them. Minimum scale of fees are revised by institute almost every year. My firm gets about 25-30% of that on any assignment. But I don't know if some of you get more, I am interested in becoming your partner. And then this minimum scale of fees, of course, are recommended. Yesterday, there was a question to me, why institute doesn't make it compulsory, for example, to see that. Friends, this was considered in the council. I was in council and many times it is considered in council. We were told that this is not possible to be done. The reason is because we have monopoly in certain areas of work, like audits. We have monopoly. Now, if we say that is a monopoly, it will be a monopolistic practice to give a minimum fee. Because the client has no option. Monopoly is what? The party has no option. He has to come to me and give me a minimum amount. That will be a monopolistic practice and it will be struck down by the courts. So because of that, we are unable to prescribe. Another question was asked to me why institute is not prescribing. We're not saying that, our fees for audit is secured. That if I change the auditor, obviously that my fees need to be paid. Why the consultancy fees are not added to that? Was a question by the institute. Why consultancy fees outstanding and shown in the balance sheet are not covered in that provision? Why? Again, same problem. Consultancy fees are at various levels. It's extremely difficult to prove that is due, etc. But that was one of them. That this is revision of fees. Now, whether This was, we were, but it was one.
The split on the
Okay. Now here, this particular thing is that this was coming on social media 2 years back, 2020, 2021. If you have seen, there was suddenly when this became applicable, the new code in 19 from 1720, everybody was worried that because the code 410.7 said that a self-interest threat may be created if the significant part of the fee is outstanding. And the code said that what I should do is I should immediately take a fee from the client before signing the next audit report, before signing the next year audit report. Why? Because he will prevent you from giving a comment or a remark in the next audit report by holding back your fees. So what ethical standard required us to recover that fee before signing the next. Now it will be a dream come true for chartered accountant if this happens. That client pays fees before, for the last year, before you sign the next year accounts. Very few firms really do it. My firm has been recovering all my audit fees before March of this year. 24 March will recover all. Now that is where it is not possible for every firm to do so. So when that was said in the ethical standard, everybody was worried. So many clients are not paid for 2 years, 3 years. Can I sign the next year audit report at all because of this new ethical requirement of 172020? So there was lot of things were going around in the social media, that is on WhatsApp. So institute came out with this, that what the ethical standard itself says, what is the what actions you can take. First is you can obtain a partial, at least the partial payment of it, if not the full payment. And secondly, another reviewer, obviously, you ask somebody else to review that just because my fees are not paid, am I compromising my position? Because I'm intimidated by large amount of fee not paid to me, I'm intimidated that I will lose the whole of it if I don't, if I give a remark. So I can have a reviewer, he looks at my engagement and looks at audit engagement and says, no, you have done right thing in spite of your fee being outstanding. You are not intimidated in any way by the client saying I'm not paying for certain reason. That's now next thing is very crucial. Now it says that a significant part of fees is due from audit client remains unpaid for a long time. Firm shall determine whether this might be equivalent to a loan. Now when it will get equivalent to a loan, I'll give you an example. One of the proprietary chartered accountant of my age told me, my wife is very safe because my outstanding fees is 1.25 crores. So if I die today, she has a reserve of 1.25 crores. I said better recover 50% and put in bank account because she doesn't even know your clients and then they are not paying you. Who will pay you, your wife after your death? She doesn't know from whom it is to be recovered. This is a mirage saying that this fee, will be. So the fee of a particular client having a loss-making unit for a long time. I know some of the units are making losses for years, but they are continued by their parent organization for some reasons. There are reasons why these units are considered. For example, they want presence in India, or it is strategically important for them to be in that. They are a selling organization of a manufacturer, whatever reason, they continue. And therefore, they are unable to pay over a very, very long period. The first thing what a firm should look at is whether it becomes indirect loan. In a sense, you are actually financing the activity of the client. And the second one is that whether it is appropriate for the firm to be reappointed. I have done this many times. I have just left 3 clients I left in last 5 years so that I get all my fees because no other chartered accountant will accept that unless I got all lakhs of rupees fee that was pending by just saying I am not accepting a reappointment and continuance of audit engagement. And that is how I have to look at it from this angle. But see the last line before I close. See the last line. However, there is no bar in signing the financial statement in these circumstances. Why this line is given? Because of the social media going around saying that I can't sign. So the institute said, no, you can sign. Don't worry, but consider all this, consider it appropriately. Thank you, friends. Thanks a lot. Reject only.
Stop sharing. Stop sharing. Mic आगे कर दो, लोग उठने लग रहा है।
क्या करना है इसमें, क्या मिलेगा, ऐसे बोलो अपने क्या है,
Now, thank you, sir, for this very wonderful and informative session. Now, for the formal vote of thanks, I request you to please keep sitting for the next 5 minutes. मैं कर देती हूँ। Ethics is the backbone of any profession, more so for our CA profession. I thank Shriniwas Joshi ji for taking this lecture today on professional ethics. His lucid way of presentation, along with sharing of practical examples, has made it very easy for us to grasp the concepts. As he himself has said, what he's talking about today is not something that is very new to us, but listening to him has reinforced the concepts of code of conduct into our minds. On behalf of the entire Dcemebr study circle, I wish to extend a hearty vote of thanks to our today's learned speaker. I would also like to acknowledge the efforts of our coordinators today for the smooth conduct of today's meeting. Today, as you all can see, we have a very large gathering. So I would like to thank CA Mahesh Bagheria ji, CA Chintan Shah, CA Ankush Gupta, CA Rahul Dava, and also Navrat. Another thanks to our today's members for coming here and being a wonderful audience. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Before we break for the breakfast, I would invite Shriniwas Joshi to take out 2 lucky draw coupons. As you all are aware, it is our 25th year going on at Dcemebr Study Circle. So this is a part of the celebration.
What did you get?
It's a surprise. Sir, it's a surprise.
That is also a surprise. Okay. So we will take out 2.
Yes, two chips.
Ishan Patel, membership number 132731.
Please keep on.
Lucky number 1. Change the lucky. All things have this name, right? Rahul or Lucky.
One more.
Sir.
046600.
Vinod. See you, Vinod.
046600.
किसको याद है अपना
As you all can see, there's a large gathering today. We have made arrangements with the caterer, but I would request you all to please cooperate. It might take a little longer. Request your cooperation during the break. Also, our second session speakers are already here, so we'll try and assemble back in another half an hour for the second session. Taxman has also put up a stall outside, so anybody who's interested can visit them. They're offering good discounts on books and also their online subscription. Thank you all. Thank you.
Yes,